still got it. He'll loft it downfield. And the Gophers strike quickly. Interception. Gophers got it. It's picked off by Jordan Howden in the end zone.
2019 was full of so many wow moments for Minnesota that you really can't pinpoint one, but I'm going to do it anyway. 9 straight wins to start the year, including that historic win over Penn State at TCF Bank Stadium. I was on site that day and can recall an enthusiasm that had been a long time coming for Minnesota. Now the Gophers try to find that same level of success in 2020 without Rashod Bateman, who opted out. Obviously, Rodney Smith and Shannon Brooks are gone. Tyler Johnson's eligibility is used up. And how about the schedule that Minnesota has to start? At Michigan State, home against Michigan, home against Iowa, at Wisconsin. That's September. We haven't even gotten to October. If the Gophers are able to do anything close to replicating 2019, it will certainly be an outstanding job once again by P.J. Fleck, who did one of the nation's best jobs coaching this team a year ago.
Well, he certainly did. 11 wins for the Gophers, the most since 1904. P.J. Fleck, kind enough to join us right now. And, Coach, let's start with what Rick was alluding to. Some might look at the schedule and say, well, crossover-wise, they don't have to play Ohio State. They don't have to play Penn State. But that schedule out of the gate is quite daunting. What do you think when you look at it?
Well, first of all, when you play in the Big Ten, there are no easy games whatsoever. And it doesn't matter who you play in the crossover games with the type of caliber coaches we have in this league now. Every week is a battle, and you know that, no matter who you're going to play. We start with Michigan State at Michigan State, and everybody knows Coach Tucker and his NFL history of what he's been able to do and building that program at Colorado, and now he's here. And then we have 3 rivalry games, 3 trophy games right in a row. This might be one of the more vigorous Septembers Minnesota's seen in a long, long time. And then, you have Nebraska, where Scott Frost is building Nebraska back into the powerhouse Nebraska once was and will be again someday. And then Indiana, the job that Tom Allen did last year with Indiana was really special. He's got a really good football team coming back, especially on the offensive side of the ball, which I think it's very documented across the country how good they're going to be there. Jeff Brom, I think, has probably the greatest receivers, one of the greatest receiving cores in the entire country, with Rondale Moore coming back and David Bell and everybody there. Then we play at Illinois, which everybody knows how Illinois finished last year with that huge win with Wisconsin, and then going to the bowl game, and then Northwestern and Maryland. And Northwestern, Pat Fitzgerald's been there for a long time. They're a few years removed from being Big Ten West champs. And then Maryland, Coach Lockley brought in a lot of transfers and is building that thing really quickly. So there are no easy games on the schedule. I don't think anybody wants easy games at all. But we have a very, very challenging schedule, and we're looking forward to having it, as well as having the flexibility to move it around if we need to.
The order of those games was one of the big pieces of information that you got today, and the other was who your added opponent would be. It is Indiana. Look, everyone's in the same boat. Everyone got one new opponent here today, so it's not unique to Minnesota. But what are the challenges of learning that you're going to play a team that you haven't been preparing for in the offseason?
Well, the thing is we have, once the 10 game schedule, we knew we were going to play only conference games. We didn't know our exact schedule months ago, but we knew we were going to play a 10-game season, right? So we've been game planning pretty much everybody in the Big Ten. We knew that we'd probably have the majority, obviously everybody in the West. And then we knew that we'd probably have a lot of the same crossovers, maybe adding one. So you're basically game planning everybody in the East too. Our coaches did that. We were very proactive about that situation. It's not like we didn't have any time to do that. I mean, we had a lot of time on our hands this offseason as we were going through. So we filled it, I think, very proactively. Doesn't guarantee anything, but it gives you a better chance to be prepared. Same games, just different time and maybe a different feel, but of where it is in the schedule, but same intense rivalries across the board.
Coach, Rick mentioned it a few minutes ago when talking about your team. Rashod Bateman choosing to opt out of playing this season, deciding instead just to focus on preparing for the NFL draft. Can you categorize or characterize, if you would, the conversations that you had with Rashod leading up to that decision?
Yeah, just like any player that I've had in the past of being a head coach, whether Western Michigan or here at Minnesota, we walk through the process together. Obviously, Rashod Bateman's one of the best players in the country. and you're being empathetic. The word of the year is really empathetic, right? In a lot of certain situations, and you're being empathetic because no one ever made me a first-round draft pick, and I don't even know what that's like. So to be able to have the ability to change your family's life, your life, and then having COVID with a lot of the risks that are involved right now, I supported him 100%. And he went through it and got all the information. I give him a lot of credit because he did it the right way, he did it the educational way. But when you're sitting there talking about a young man who's going to be a first rounder, you want to support him. You know, our job as coaches is to make sure, that's the word coach, right? Stage coach. Take people from where they are when you meet them and then take them to where they've always dreamed of being. And Rashod Bateman from day one wanted to play in the National Football League, wanted to be a first-round draft pick. And now he has the opportunity to do that, take care of his family earlier, limit some risks to be able to do that. He's got a way out. He's got a perfect opportunity to be able to do it. And we support him 100%. And I also know that it's where Minnesota's headed. You know, when we're at Minnesota and we have players that are after their true sophomore year deciding to come out to go be first-round draft picks, we're recruiting the right student athletes. Our coaches are developing them in the right way. And that's where our program's headed because there's a lot of really elite recruits coming into our program as well.
He was part of what was an overpowering offense last year. Now you're in a situation where you have new offensive coordinators, Mike Sanford coming in, along with Matt Simon, the co-offensive coordinator duties. Of course, Simon was on your staff last year. Give us a sense of how that transition is working.
Well, it's gone really well. You know, we've had different faces come in and out of our offense, obviously. You know, when you lose the two top returning, you know, all first team, all Big Ten wide receivers, right? We lose both of those guys for all good reasons and special reasons. But we have some really good guys right behind them that have an opportunity. And sometimes you've got those really, really special players. And with all due respect, when they leave and they go to the NFL, you find out what somebody else has really been able to do with possibly like the cap on the jar of the grasshopper. And you take it off, and that grasshopper jumps higher than it's ever jumped. So with that, with the Chris Altman-Bells and the Demetrius Douglases, we got a lot of young guys that we brought in as true freshmen that feel that can really contribute. Clay Geary's a guy that hasn't had a lot of opportunities, going to get some opportunities as well. Seth Green, who plays our Wildcat quarterback, is going to have an opportunity as well at that position. But very similar offense. But, you know, Mike Sanford and Matt Simon are putting their own heads together to be able to make it better, evolve it, change it, and make it fit more to us. And Brevin Spanford and our tight ends could be a little bit more involved. I thought Brevin Spanford came on at the end of last year, as well as when you return Tanner Morgan, who I think is one of the better quarterbacks in the Big Ten, as well as Mohamed Ibrahim, one of the best backs in the country, and our offensive line. There's a lot of pieces to build around.
Coach, one last question I wanted to ask you. Just give me a sense, if you would, of what it's like inside your program right now as you guys are getting set to transition into training camp. Give people a little bit of a glimpse behind the curtain as to what's going on, how you're handling COVID, all of these different issues which surround a team right now.
Yeah, I think that, you know, trust is broken down into three things, right? Time, consistency, and proof. And trust comes down to this whole situation we're all going through, right? We have incredible leadership from the top. President Joan Gable's been absolutely amazing through this whole process with our football team. Mark Coyle, our athletic director, has been outstanding. The number one thing at the forefront of everybody's mind is our player safety. We've adapted how we do things. We've adapted. Training camp starts really Friday, right? So we've adapted how we're going to do training camp. Training camp's not going to look like training camp used to look like. And I think some of the players, when they hear training camp, their mind goes to a certain spot and says, well, how are we even going to do that? Well, training camp in 2020 has a completely different meaning than what it used to. The season of 2020 is going to have a completely different meaning with travel and staying and everything that comes along with that used to. So when people talk about this new norm, it's really not that. It's kind of like the new next. And that's been our approach. Focus on now. What can you do right now? The only thing that matters is now. And then when we get to tomorrow, we'll focus on that. But if you start to think about how we're going to do school and how we're going to do this and how's the season going to work and how is my eligibility going to be at the end, it gets really confusing really fast. And that's where we've seen some student athletes kind of, you know, they get a little down thinking about those things. Focus on now. We have rules. We have safety for right now. Let's focus on that. And then as we go further, the people that are even going to keep us safer than what we could ever imagine with the protocols and the rules in place, we'll make those as we keep going forward. But right now, well, we feel like we have everything we need to be able to start training camp our way And I thought our players have had an outstanding offseason about handling this in a very mature way.
Well, living through a historic period, no doubt, on the heels of a historic season, a top 10 finish for the first time since 1962. PJ Fleck, head coach of the Gophers. Thanks so much, Coach. Really appreciate it.
You got it. Row the boat, Sky Go Gophers. Thanks.